This is a quick start tutorial about how stereoscopic clips are handled on the timeline. It's certainly not a full tutorial about stereoscopic post-production as such, just purely how we handle clips that are part of stereo pairs. Generally there are two kinds of clips that will find their way to the Mistika timeline. Those that are captured with left and right streams combined, for example from an HD Cam SR deck, and those which are supplied to Mistika separately, so a separate video channel for the left and a separate video channel for the right. Where a clip has been captured with simultaneous left and right capturing, Mistika will create a single clip instance that has both left and right embedded in it, and that's clear by the LR that's added on to the end of the name. If ever we want to break a combined clip into its left and right parts, then simply under Edit there is Stereo Break here, and then you can see that we have a left track and a right track. Likewise, something that was once combined can be recombined with a recover stereo function. On the other hand, if we've been provided with separate left and right 2D streams, combining them is very straightforward. There's only one thing we need to know, and that is that in the timeline the left image goes on top of the right image. As long as you remember that, that's all you need to know. So to combine left and right streams into a single stereo pair, we use the stereo function from the Effects Dashboard tab. Stereo 3D here. What this will do is from its first input it'll look for a left eye, and from its second input it'll look for a right eye. The combination out of the effect will be a stereoscopic pair. By double clicking to go into the visual editor, we can check this by using the monitoring functions that Mistika has to look at stereo pairs. As long as this button is on, use stereo mode, then we have two output menus. The first is for what we see in the visual editor. The second is for what we send to our external video card. This is quite useful because it means we can fix the output for our client monitor whilst, as an operator, constantly changing what we're looking at. For example, using the shortcut keys, here I'm looking at the left and the right images to look for misalignment and color problems. And you can see down here the menu is changing. I'm using the shortcut key R for right and E for left, just because E is next to R on the keyboard. Other modes I can look at are A for anaglyph, B black and white anaglyph, K is a checkerboard between the two, S side by side, so a number of different modes, all of which you can get in here. We'll not go into the full Mistika stereoscopic tool set right now, but just as a quick preview and to explain that the stereo effect that we use to combine the left and right eye also contains all of the tools that we would use to align and manipulate our 3D, including semi-auto tools here and fully auto tools here. For example, here we can see going between left and right eye there's a vertical offset and a color change. So I'll press match colors and match geometry, and now when we go between left and right eye we can see our issues are all fixed. Likewise, if I chose match move X, I could say that I want my point of convergence here. So you can see how quickly we can align stereo images, but we'll have a full tutorial on all that later on. Going back to the timeline, it's worth exploring the flow of stereo images a little bit further. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to insert 3 color correctors in different places on this effect. And in fact, just to make it clearer, if we find our flow monitor, we can see what we're doing here. I'm taking a right image and applying it through a color corrector. Then I'm taking a left image and applying it through a color corrector. Each of those goes into the stereo effect, and the whole result goes through a third color corrector. The reason I'm doing this is if we go back to here, the visual editor, and go to side by side, we can see how the flow of stereo images works. If I select the top color corrector, which is fixed to the result of the stereo 3D, we can see that my actions affect both left and right at the same time. On the other hand, if I were to control the color corrector that's only on the left image, you can see that I'm only interacting with the left eye, or of course the right eye. So this is quite a good example of how we can work with a stereo pair, or work individually on the left or right eyes, whilst always being able to see a stereoscopic result, which is very important when we're compositing. Most effects within Mistika are already stereo aware, insofar as they will happily work with left and right channels. For example, if I added a blur node to the top of this stack, changing the blur would happily do left and right channels together. When we come to render or output our stereo effects, we have some stereo options to help us. Under here, stereo mode, we can choose to render just the left eye, just the right eye, a dual combined clip just like it's been captured from HDCam SR, or in any of the other formats. For example, I might want to send a side-by-side MPEG to my client so they could see it on a 3D TV. So that's a very brief outline of how stereo effects work within the Mistika timeline, and obviously we'll have a more detailed tutorial later on.